It is now being recorded.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you don't mind, just let me know when you can see it. Good?
I can see it.
Perfect. So thank you again for joining our session today. We're going to, if you're not familiar with ReadSpeaker, we're a text-to-speech company. And so today we're going to be talking about making the online experience come to life. I'm Kathy Wood. I'm the Education Partner Manager at ReadSpeaker. I work with our education partners, whether it be our LMS companies or even just our disability services groups that we work with to nurture those relationships to be better partners in that education space. Alongside me today is Ginger Dewey, who is our Education Development Manager. She is our guru of everything customer support related. She is the onboarding person. She is your connection for the life of the product. And so she is the end all to be all of everything ReadSpeaker. So quickly, our agenda today, just going to quickly talk about who we are and who benefits, talk about universal design of learning, talk about our voices, because that really makes your online experience a lot more engaging, and having that variety can really help our students learn better. We'll do an overview of our accessibility tools and text aid products and wrap it up with our ease of use of implementation. So who are we? We're a text-to-speech company, but what differentiates us is that we include accessibility tools. We have over 20 years of experience in the education space. We're used by over 1,500 institutions globally, and we are very much about helping everyone, not just a few. Now, as educators, you know that no two students learn the same way. I have two teenage boys, and I can tell you night and day in terms of the way they learn. Looking at these statistics here, it's a pretty eye-opening. Only 1 out of every 20 students with learning disabilities will actually inform their college. Over on the left-hand side, 26% of the people in the United States have some sort of disability. And again, you know, when we think about reasons why someone may not disclose their disability, it could be just they want to keep that close to the vest. It may be financial. We know in K-12 spaces, there's money for testing. In college, there's not. And so that could be, you know, the differentiator. Ginger, did you want to add anything to the slide?
Okay, I couldn't get my mouse back in the right place. Sorry about that. Yes, I wanted to take the statistics a little bit further. I'm a former math teacher, so I have to get down to hard numbers here. Let's say you have 5,000 students at your institution, and if 26% in the US have some type of disability, that's saying about 1,300 of your students have a disability. If we go further, we see that 520 to 780 of those students are not identifying. And when you look at numbers like that, we're not talking 1 or 2 people, we're talking a large amount. So as we look at how students learn and how ReadSpeaker can help with that, ReadSpeaker is about the UDL model, and we are about servicing all students, not just those that have identified. Kathy?
Great. So if you're not familiar with UDL, it's based on scientific insights. It's about that equal opportunity across the board for all students. It works for everyone, not just the few, and it's adjusted for the individual needs. So again, and later on in the presentation, we'll talk about certain accessibility tools for disabilities that we might not think as a disability, including things like screen burnout and screen fatigue that have plagued, you know, a lot of our virtual students. So kind of keep that back in the back of your mind about those students that may have something that we don't necessarily consider a disability, as what we've learned, you know, way in the past, and how UDL really does benefit those students. Ginger?
For UDL, we all know that it's the what, the how, and the why of learning. When you're looking at the what, that is the parental and optical lobes of the brain, that type area, which control reading and writing. And the how is the frontal lobe of the brain, which is primarily organization. Well, organization requires the student to be able to not only have things set up, this is in this file, this is in that file, and so on, but it also means they have to organize their thoughts. And that is something we can help with certain tools. And the third part, the why of learning, is the temporal lobe, which controls memory, speech, comprehension. Again, we can help with that. So we address all the different parts of the brain as we are looking at the UDL and as we're looking at the Read Speaker tools. Kathy?
All right, so let's get to nitty-gritty. Our voices. Our voices are human-like, they're relatable. We have over 90 voices available in more than 30 languages. We're constantly improving not only our voices, but what languages are available. And in a independent rating system, we are rated as the most accurate on the market. And we do take the time to select and record the most professional voice talents out in the market. Now, I want to give you some of our voices in action.
The LMS can change languages and voices on the fly. Here you can hear a few samples from our own Read Speaker voices. My name is Sophie, and changing voices is an excellent way to break up material to help produce screen fatigue.
My name is Ashley, and like Sophie, I am an American English female voice. Changing voices can also be used as a study strategy.
My name is Julie, and as Ashley and Sophie, I am an American English female voice. You may want to change voices for different subjects.
My name is Paul, and I am an American English male voice. You may want to associate a particular voice with a particular subject.
My name is James, and I am also an American English voice. In discussions, you may want to associate a male voice for posts made by males, and a female voice for posts made by females. We also have other English voices.
Hi, my name is Bridget, and I am a British female voice. And I think changing voices is an excellent way to bring courses to life.
My name is Mason, and I am an Australian male voice. And I think changing voices is one of many tools that can make your courses more engaging.
This is Priya, the Indian English voice. There are also other British English and Australian English male and female voices.
French, Élise. Les solutions de synthèse vocale de Read Speaker vous permettent d'étendre la portée de vos contenus en ligne en créant instantanément une version audio de votre site web, application mobile, cours en ligne, etc.
German Max. Read Speaker Text-to-Speech-Lösungen erweitern die Reichweite ihrer Inhalte, indem sofort eine Audioversion ihrer Website, App, Online-Kurse und vielem mehr erstellt wird.
Dutch, Ilse. Read Speaker tekst-naar-spraak-oplossingen vergroten het bereik van uw content door een audioversie van uw website, mobiele app, online cursussen en meer te creëren.
Now, I don't know about you, but that French voice really sounded pretty cool. So as you can see, there is a plethora of different voices. We just gave you a small sampling of our voices. And you can see that as the voices changed, you might have peaked a little bit because you were hearing those different voices. And that's what the thought process is behind changing those voices is that as an accessibility tool, is it breaks up that monotony. And so, again, Ginger can, elaborate on this a little bit later in terms of, when you have Read Speaker, you get the male and female voices, and there's different language packages and that sort of thing. But again, think about that as an accessibility tool for students. If they listen better to a male, They may want to have male voices read to them. If they have a female instructor, they may relate better. So again, think about those as accessibility tools. Ginger, we're going to dive deep now in some of the other tools and kind of show you some videos of how those work. First up is settings and text mode. Ginger, do you want me to just go ahead and dive into the video, or do you want to add anything to it?
I want to add something in front. First off, when we're playing videos over Zoom, the transcript and the video may not be at the same point as the voice, and that's because how Zoom transmits the two different parts. Just know on our screens when we were playing this, they were together. Okay, one of the things about accessibility is when you look at settings and text mode. First off, our settings are unique to the user, the device, and the browser. So change any one of those and you need new settings. But it also allows the student to make the choice about how they want to view it on one device versus another. Kathy, let's watch the video. What we're going to talk about first is tools of inclusion. Now, inclusion does not necessarily mean just those students who have identified as needing an accommodation. There are a lot of students on higher ed level that have not identified, and that could be because cost or just wanting it to be kept close to the vest, so to speak. There are other students that can benefit from these tools also that maybe do not have a disability but just prefer a different format. Now, one of the first things we're going to talk about is settings. And in settings, you can see we can set the word and sentence color, but we have the population of students that are colorblind. If you're working on a course that is heavy in vocabulary, then you want to use the underline on the word. If it is general reading, then the underline on the sentence. Now, when we are in text mode, our font size goes from -1 to +7, where normal is about a 12 point. We're going to put it on +7. Our fonts go from serif to sans serif to Open Dyslexic. And Open Dyslexic is a relatively newer font, basically came out around 2010-2012 time frame. And there were other dyslexia fonts that were similar to this before then. This dyslexic font and others like it are very good for dyslexic students because it places a bolding on the letters so that the students can separate the letters themselves and therefore phonetically sound out words. Your younger students maybe have been exposed to some type of dyslexic typeface, whereas your older students maybe have not. In the Dyslexia Awareness Month, which I believe was October, I learned that yellow on black is the best settings for dyslexic students. And if we scroll down, we see things are written on top of each other. In text mode, we can stretch the window so that that is no longer a case. And you can see the bolding or thickening of the text on each individual line. That helps those students phonetically sound it out. Now, that's a bit difficult for me to read, so I'm going to move it to black on light yellow, move this back to Open Sans, and put this back on a +2 font, and we see the screen in this manner. Notice this particular menu bar is on all text blocks. Now let's look at text mode. In text mode, everything is left justified, and we see the colors that we have chosen. We see the menu up here at the top, and what that's doing is it's removing any image that does not have an alt text associated with it. If it is a decorative text, it's gone. If it doesn't have an alt text, it's gone. The other thing is if you had titles on this page or headings on this page, they would be responsive in size based on the font size you have here. I'm going to move this back to normal and black on white, and you can see how quickly you can make those changes without having to go back all the way to your settings to do that.
Okay. So do we have any questions so far before we jump into the next accessibility tool? Okay, Ginger, do you want me to go ahead and play the video?
Yes, let's play the video and then I'll talk a little bit about the different parts right. Now let's talk about students who maybe have a little bit of difficulty with vision, or they may be gamers, or they may need to increase focus. And a tool that we have for those type students is called Enlarge Text. And the way it works is you turn it on, then you highlight some information, and you click Listen. We're going to see it at the bottom of the screen in enlarged font.
Knowing where to find learner support is a...
As you can see, it is playing, and one of the things is it's larger. I can make it larger than this, but I want you to pay attention to how quickly it appears to be reading. Now, the reading speed is staying the same, but it appears that it is moving faster because the highlighted word is larger.
Essential to your success. Our independence makes us feel that we should...
Okay, I stopped it. It is still turned on up here. We do have to go back and turn it off. Now, that's great for the students that need to increase their focus because their eye is pulled to it. It's great for gamers because it looks like it's moving fast. It's great for students who have lower vision. Other tools that we have that help with distracted readers, whether that be because they might have ADD, they might have ADHD, they might have some cognitive learning difficulties. Those tools are the page mask, and we'll look at that. As you see, it is a mask. It's like a sheet of paper with a hole cut in it. You can make it larger or smaller. You can use it like a note card with the bottom edge to stay on line. It's great for those students that are having that focus. Another tool we have when we're on a document is the reading ruler. And when I turn it on, it is like a note card. You can make it larger or smaller. And when you're in Doc Reader, that's like sheets of paper. So you can move the reading ruler or you can move the paper behind it by moving on your mouse. The same thing is true for the page mask. When you're in the Doc Reader, you can move the paper instead of the mask. Now those are those three tools. When we talk about those three tools and we think about the different parts of the brain, first off, the page mask helps the student organize what they're seeing by increasing that focus for them. The same thing's going on with the reading ruler in that it's increasing the focus, which increases the way the brain helps to organize it, or at least that's my understanding of the brain. One of the things about hearing the information read out loud to you is that it works on the temporal lobe, which is the third part of the brain, the why. It's helping you with that type of learning. Now, the next video that we have is on dictionary translation and reading speed. And one of the things I want to bring out, and I think I mentioned this in the video when we were recording it, is that with translation, we think a lot about, okay, we need to translate this word to another language because we might be learning French or Spanish or something like that. But think about your second language learner. They have to translate back to English so they can learn how to pronounce the word correctly. And that pronunciation is in the frontal lobe, which is in the how part of the brain. Now, Dictionary, the same thing. You're looking up a word to see what it means. It's the same type thing. Kathy, let's listen to the video now and watch the video. Now, the next two tools we're going to talk about are dictionary and translate. And with the dictionary and translate, you might not think of those as tools of inclusion, but if you have a student that is a second language student, then being able to translate a word or phrase back into their native language, or to be able to look up a word to see what it means in the English language is important. Let's take the word highlighted. And I'm just going to highlight the word highlighted and click on dictionary, and we see it can't find it. Now, we use Wiktionary, which is an Oxford style dictionary, and because of that, you normally have to drop the suffix like you do in a normal dictionary. Now, I'm going to highlight just the word highlight and click dictionary. And now we can see that it's telling us that we are using an online dictionary. It can be used as a noun and a verb and what the definitions are. Let's say we do not know what different learning preferences is in English, and we want to translate that to our native language, which maybe is French. Now, this tells us that we are using Google Translate, and you can see that down here, and it translates basically as different preferences learning, and we can listen to that.
Différentes préférences d'apprentissage.
For the French-speaking student, they would understand that. However, if I highlight the entire page or a paragraph or a sentence, Google Translate is going to go back to working as a word-by-word translation, which means it's not going to have the sentence structure correct in the other language. One other tool I want to mention here that you maybe don't realize can be a tool of accessibility, and I'm going to pause this real quick, is reading speed. Now, reading speed for a student that is a second language learner needs to be a little bit slower so that they can grasp the pronunciation of the words. If you're working in a very difficult subject matter, you might want to pull it down slower. If you're going into an area where information comes at you fast, you may want it a little bit faster. So that will help change how you want to do the reading speed. Let's listen to this, pumping it up just a little bit on speed.
Knowing where to find learner support is essential to your success.
And as you can hear, it was moving much faster now. We talked a lot about second language learners there, but I also want to bring out the fact that the student who is working with something very technical maybe wants to slow the speed down some so that they can grasp everything that they want, and that way they are getting a better understanding. Kathy?
All right, so we're going to move on to highlighting. And I think this is very interesting in terms of an accessibility tool when we think about note taking. And I think, you know, that's one of the areas I knew I was lacking in college. And this is a very interesting way to think about that in terms of a tool to help our students.
Do you want a quick study tip for gathering the information from the articles in your course? Use your highlighter tools. On the lower toolbar of ReadSpeaker DocReader, accessed by clicking on More Tools, the highlighter tools are indicated by an icon that has a felt tip pen. You will use the highlighter tools the same as you use a highlighter on a paper text. Click on the highlighter tools icon. You can highlight by clicking the color and highlighting the material, or by clicking on the pointer, which has an arrow as the icon. When you use the pointer, you will highlight material, and the color palette will pop up for you to select the color or border. To show the borders, click on the menu, the 3 horizontal lines on the color palette, and select Show Borders, which is especially beneficial to colorblind students. We will need 2 colors. Let's use red and green. Use one color for the essential aspects of the article. Let's use green for this part. Use the second color, red, for parts that you do not understand. Since we will be alternating in colors, let's use the pointer for highlighting our material. As you read the article, highlight the article accordingly. Let's highlight a few items on this document. After finishing the article, you will want to collect the highlights or borders from the article. Click on the menu, the 3 horizontal lines, and then on Collect and Download Highlights. Make your choices for each of the 4 areas, which include collecting the entire document or only the current page, sorting the highlights by color or position, showing or not showing the highlighter colors which are shown on the right, and showing or not showing the borders. In this demo, we are going to collect the entire document, sort by position, and show both the colors and the borders. Click Collect and Download. A PDF is produced that shows the page numbers, the color of the highlights, and the borders if selected. Save the PDF with the name of your choice. We suggest that you use the name of the article. Click Save. Let's open the PDF. When you are studying, you now have the material summarized. You can go back to the article and see the highlights or borders for more information. In class, you can ask questions about the part you don't understand. You have page references for your instructor. If you would like to remove the highlights, go back to the article and click on the highlighter tool. Click on the menu on the color palette. You can decide if you would like to clear the highlights on one page or the entire document. After making your decision, click on it. Then click on Yes, clear them. The highlights are now removed. Highlights and borders are unique to you and are stored in the cookies and cache on your computer. If you clear your cookies or cache, the highlights and borders will be removed. Try this excellent study aid.
One of the things I would like to add to this is it is an excellent way for teaching. Let's say you're at the beginning of a term and you assign something for your students to learn, read through, and you hope they learn the important parts. But what happens is most of the students don't gather the important parts of the text. You could highlight in advance and then go back and hide those highlights. After you've tried to extract the information from the students, then you can show them the highlights so that they can go back and mark them up. If you're on a different device, then you could always use the PDF that is produced to show that. One of the other things that I want to say about highlighting is we've just had a recent addition to our highlighter, which is a movable, I'll call it a sticky or post note type thing on it. So you can make some actual comments on the document itself. Our next video is about proof listening and dictation, and these are some of my favorite tools. First off, I know I don't necessarily write what I think I'm writing, and sometimes I'm not a good typist. So let's look at these 2 tools and then we'll discuss how this is part of accessibility. We're going to look at 2 more accessibility tools, and these are in our tool called TextAid. I've typed up 2 sentences up here, and if I listen to the sentences, we're going to hear a problem.
This is demo form Ginger. She not traveling today.
This is what we call proof listening, because if you're proofreading, the first thing you do is a spell check, and we see traveling is misspelled. When I click on the word, I can choose which word I want, or I could listen to it also. A lot of students, that's as far as they go with proofreading, because when they read this, they read, this is a demo from Ginger. She is not traveling today. but that is not what that says. We heard this is demo. We need a demo. We heard form, not from. She is not traveling today. Now, if we listen to it again.
This is a demo from Ginger. She is not traveling today.
Okay, we hear two short sentences. They could be called clumsy sentences because they are short and choppy, and we need to make more complex sentences. This is a demo from Ginger, and she is not traveling today. Just putting in that and helps combine the two sentences. If we listen now.
This is a demo from Ginger and she is not traveling today.
We hear the sentence as a more complex sentence. Now, at that point, if you were writing a paper, you've proof listened to the entire work. It's now time to go to a tutor to see about sentence fragments, paper structure, the flow of the paper. Did you hit all the marks that you're supposed to hit as you're writing it? The other tool I want to show you is dictation. We do have a dictation service in our new text. And with that dictation service, you'll notice that it has a start button. And with the start button, as I start talking, it's going to record what I say. I want you to pay attention to how quickly I go through the sentences without a long pause in there. Today is today, period. Tomorrow is not today, period. What will tomorrow be? Question mark. Notice that it put in the capital T on tomorrow, the capital W on what. It put in the periods and the question mark, but it did not put in the T on today. So I need to make that a capital T and insert it. Another thing we can do with dictation, if we're not that fast with saying things, we can click the start, and I'm going to do this several times. Today is today, period. Now I click in my box and I press enter. What will tomorrow be? Question mark. Now I click in the box and press enter. I don't know, comma, do you? Question mark. Notice it does take the comma. Our ending punctuation is there. I is capitalized because it's a proper pronoun, but I do need to capitalize the first letter of each sentence. That's why I put the return or enter so that all of the sentences started on the left and I could catch all of those capital letters. Because when I insert the text, notice it comes across in paragraph form, not in the individual lines we saw. That's another way that students can benefit from this if they have an accessibility need. They maybe have a broken arm and can't type very well. They maybe just aren't a good typist, or they may have some other difficulty that prevents them from typing. This is a non-trainable mic. However, if you speak clearly, it picks it up. If it catches my southern drawl, it'll catch just about anything. With all that said, one of the things that I want to stress about proof listening is you can proof listen to anything. You can copy and paste it and listen to it. If you're working on Word online or in Google Docs, you can listen to it there using the extension instead of the full TextAid platform. Proof listening is a wonderful way to make certain that you're conveying the information you need to convey. And that's part of accessibility, because accessibility not only means accessible in that you have to have an accommodation, it means accessible in understanding and in gaining information. And if you're not conveying it correctly because of left out words, misspelled words, things that are left out, unintentional words, then you are not making it accessible to the other person receiving that information. Dictation is more of an accessibility in the form that I can't type and I need to be able to type, regardless of what that reason is for the fact that you can't type. Now let's talk about screen fatigue and burnout. Kathy, let's see what we have to say about that.
Okay, and this is kind of what I was alluding to in the beginning of the presentation, is that, we think about certain disabilities as concrete disabilities, but screen fatigue and burnout is something, that's a little bit newer when we think about a disability. We think about over the last year and a half, our students going from brick and mortar to total virtual, some now going into a hybrid model. I saw the struggles with my own teenagers with being on the screen all day long, trying to keep their focus up, listening to material or reading material, and just getting glassy-eyed. And so, again, there are tools out there that breaks this up, that keeps a learner engaged, and fights and combats this fatigue and burnout. So let's go ahead and watch a little bit of those tools in action.
We talked about a lot of tools that we have in WebReader, and something that we haven't mentioned is screen burnout. And you might not think about screen burnout as being about accessibility, but it is. If you are not paying attention because you're so burned out from reading the screen all day, then you're not grasping what you need to be grasping. So far, we've talked about settings. We've talked about enlarged text, text mode, page mask. Of course, you can download and listen to your material if you wanted to. We've talked about the dictionary and translate and how they help us. But we have not talked about another tool that gives us a lot of advantage about listening to what we're hearing, because we can swap up from reading to listening. But if you listen to the same voice all day, it begins to sound like Charlie Brown's mom. Wah, 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 wah. But up here we have reading language. And let me explain one thing about reading language. It is not a translation tool. It should always match the language of the document that you're reading, whether that be a file like it is here, or if we are reading a document itself. Your reading language should always match it. It is not a translation tool. I keep emphasizing that. But depending on which voices you have, you should have male and female for each one. So you should automatically have female and male of the English. If you purchase the Spanish language, then you should have male and female of it. If you purchased French or Canadian French, you should have male and female of it. Whichever language packs you have, you should have both genders. If you don't, contact us and we will give you the other gender for that language pack. Like I said, you want to be able to change this up. So if I wanted to use the American English female voice, I could change to it. And notice that the tab did go to the left. That's because it's changing a voice engine. I could then look at this much and have it read aloud.
You may prefer to listen to information.
Okay, now I'm going to go back and change it to the male voice.
You may prefer to listen to information.
And you can hear the different voices. Students sometimes will choose to use one voice for one subject and another voice for a different subject. They may choose the voice based on the gender of the instructor. A male for a male instructor and a female for a female instructor. They may choose it as a subject area, like all their sciences, they want one gender, and all their liberal arts, they want a different gender. They may choose it just because they like that particular voice. So there's lots of things that could cause them to choose voice. Anything we can do to reduce screen fatigue or burnout helps. And changing voices, changing the text background and swapping over into text mode, using enlarged text. Again, here's the text mode button. Using a page mask. Anything that we can do that breaks that same way they have been looking at the screen helps to reduce the screen fatigue and burnout that our students are experiencing. And in this day and age, there's a lot of burnout going on. I'd like to add in something here. In this, we talked about listening and we talked about hearing. Remember, listening and hearing are two different things. You can hear a voice and know that it is talking, but you're not processing it. Listening is hearing and processing, okay? What do you think is the most challenging accessibility facing your students right now? You can open your mic and respond to that, or you can put something in chat. What do you think is most challenging to your students? Anybody? Don't be shy.
There's
Technology and time.
Okay. When you say time, are you saying just the amount of time that they're given to complete something?
Just really balancing their schedules in general. Time is an overarching thing between jobs, family, schoolwork, and assignments, all across that.
Yeah, and that's, when we talk about, your different devices and how you can download the MP3s and stuff, we have, we have students at different levels, whether they be a late coming student. My sister is going back to nursing school at age of 46, and being on the go and having 3 kids and all this kind of stuff, being able to listen to something on your mobile device, being able to listen to it, as you're on the go, is super important. And that's a good thing to bring up. Anybody else? All right, Ginger, do you want to jump right in? Go ahead.
One of the things I think about with time is teaching the students how to organize their time and how to use their time wisely. And sometimes the students maybe are organized, but it's taking them longer to learn because they don't have the necessary tools to learn, because they've chosen not to self-identify for whatever reason. So keep in mind that sometimes by using the tools that we have, they help the student improve their learning and improve their organization and use of time. Also, with technology, the technology in ReadSpeaker is very easy to use. I mean, click listen and it will play the whole page. In Blackboard and in Canvas, you do have the tab that you have to click on. You've seen that in some of the videos, and in other places you saw the listen button already up there. But in actuality, our technology is very easy for the student to use. It is not like they've got to have special control characters to bring this up or that up. So that also helps ease some of the technology. Kathy, let's look at the TextAid extension.
Use the web reading functionality in TextAid to listen to any website. Follow the instructions to add the extension to your browser. Once on a website you would like to listen to, click on the TextAid extension, which will appear on the page. The extension has several tools. Match the reading language to the language of the file. Adjust the highlighting colors and reading speed to your preference. Select the text you want to listen to and click Listen.
Speech synthesis is the artificial production of human speech.
When you are in Google Docs or in Word online, there are a few text aid features you may want to use. One tool is the Writing Assistance tool. Make your choices. Let's try this out.
READSPEAKER. Read speaker. Read speaker.
You can also proof listen to the document by highlighting the text and then clicking Listen. Let's proof listen to this first sentence in Word Online.
This is Word Online.
Make changes and listen again.
This is a Word Online document.
We can also use our Writing Assistance tool like we did in Google Docs. Typed words on images, no problem. Click on the Snapshot tool to OCR the words.
Frets.
If you are on a browser that does not have an extension available, then use the TextAid bookmark. Follow the instructions and drag the TextAid bookmark to the bookmarks bar. Navigate to the website you want to listen to and click on the TextAid bookmark. The Listen button appears on the screen. Select the text you want to listen to and click Listen. Press pause. Click on the gear and adjust your reading speed. Use Enhanced Text Visibility. And to change the highlighting colors, click Play.
A computer system used for this purpose is called a speech computer or speech synthesizer.
What do users think? Han Nu says.
I use TextAid for long magazine articles, research reports, and also books. It is often easier to listen than to read.
Start listening to websites today by signing up for a trial of TextAid.
One of the things about TextAid that I want to bring out is it takes the learning beyond just a Google Doc or your LMS, and in Canvas, the way we read our documents is using the extension, but it also takes it to websites. And with websites, next slide. With websites like what you see on the left here, we have the case of the disappearing cicadas. It allows you to get into current events, and we have the extension parts labeled. Kathy, what would you like to say about the extension?
Well, when we talk about, the documents, the websites, they all need to be accessible. And, in the video, we saw how even an image can be OCR'd, making that accessible too. So it really helps bring classes to life. You can use these current events on these websites and integrate them into your classroom and still be accessible to your students and have them more engaging.
One of the other things that we can say about the OCR process is think about the anatomy and physiology diagrams, or you're looking at blueprints or something like that that are electronic. The writing on it is very, very small, and it's always got an arrow pointing somewhere. Well, you can OCR the word and then hear how it is being pronounced correctly so that you can connect the oral class lecture that you had with the written word with the location of it on the diagram. And that helps build that learning process.
So again, we wanted to show an overview of our accessibility tools, talk about the importance of these tools to our students, not just the ones that are identified with disabilities, but all students. And so when we talk about, as we wrap up our presentation, we talk about the ease of use and accessibility. You saw in the videos, it's literally clicking the listen button. And what more important is, it's unique to the user and the device, so that we're not putting blanket settings across the board, that this is actually personalized to the actual student. And that in turn frees up your time and ability and your staff's ability to do other things, because it gives the student that freedom and that personalization to make it feel like it's their own. We did a big push to test our software with a lot of the proctoring solutions that are out there on the market today. And we're happy to say we're compatible with many of the proctoring software solutions. I know that that's a big issue with some institutions in terms of their proctoring software working with other third-party vendors. So we're happy to say that we are compatible. And when we talk about accessibility, again, reads while highlighting the words, enlarging the text, all of these things can just, benefit these students to be more engaged in their learning process. And Ginger, I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate on the Bookshare accounts, but again, as Ginger also mentioned, we integrate with all the major LMSs. We have certified integrations and great relationships with them to keep our integration always continually the process of making them better. And that also comes with user feedback as well. So Ginger, do you want to say a little bit about the Bookshare accounts before we end our presentation?
Yes, Bookshare, which is typically used in the K-12 marketplace and some freshman textbooks, we have a tab that we can turn on in our library to where the student who has a Bookshare account can go straight there and download the book. If you're using Access Text, then you can upload the book to your TextAid library and then share it with the student. It's a one-way share, so the student cannot give the book to anyone else, which protects the copyright. When you download from Bookshare, it does not allow you to share it, so it protects the copyright. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask?
And I'll encourage you to visit the website that's listed on the bottom of the slide. It's readspeaker.com/education, and it is the funnel into all of our integrations with the different LMS systems, and can give you different customer success stories as well as videos for those particular LMS. And also, if you happen to be interested in a free trial of our product, let Ginger and I know, or Paul. Our emails addresses are on the screen. And this video will be available after the presentation, and we will be sending that out by email. But again, we want to thank you for joining the presentation and hope that you walk away with new information.
Thank you very much for attending. And as Kathy said, if you have any questions, ask us. This was a high overview. I can answer more specific technical questions that you may have, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.